sound monster. Wilma and the gang were recording a play. They needed a special sound effect. We need a sound like someone walking on the gravel, said Wilma, a kind of crunchy, scrunchy sound. Any ideas? Wilf and Biff went to get some gravel from outside to put in a box. Kipper thought that the money in his money box made a scrunchy sound, so he and Chip went to find that. Wilma borrowed Mrs. Robinson's pen to make a list of things they could use. Floppy whined as Wilma's pen squeaked on the board. Will I ever find the right sound? Wilma sighed. I wish she'd stop making that scratchy, squeaking, scraping noise, thought Floppy. My ears are killing me. The key on Floppy's collar started to glow. Suddenly, Wilma and Floppy were dragged into a vortex of dazzling colours and lights. They were spinning round and round, faster and faster. They landed on a sandy beach, overlooked by a huge mountain. What is this place? Wilma wondered, looking around her. A sound came from the sea. Wilma and Floppy watched in surprise as 3 balls of light zoomed right over their heads. Whiz! Then the balls disappeared into the side of the mountain. They were just getting their breath back when they heard a ping. It was a leaf falling off a tree, landed on the sand with a kaboom. Next they heard a woof woof, but it wasn't a dog barking, it was a bird. Wilma and Floppy were very confused. Just then 3 islanders walked up. We're the people of Sound Island, said the first one. Or should we say Muddle Sound Island? He added sadly. The sound monster inside the mountain is making our lives miserable, the second islander explained. Tears welled up in their eyes, and they all began to cry, but their sobs sounded like donkeys braying. Hee-haw, 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 they cried. See, sobbed the first islander. We can't even cry properly. Wilma felt sorry for them. What has the sound monster done? She asked. He usually sucks sounds up into Sound Mountain, records them and sends them back out again, the first islander said. But lately they've come out all wrong, said the second. Our fire engine makes a noise like a packet of crisps, said the third sadly. At the mention of the word crisps, Floppy sat up and barked, but just as the bark left his mouth, it turned into a ball of light and shot into the mountain. His bark has been sucked into Sound Mountain, said the first islander told them. Seconds later, another ball whizzed out of the mountain and into Floppy's mouth. Floppy gulped. Meow, he said. Wilma was angry. If the sound monster thinks he can just take Floppy's bark and give him a meow, he's got another thing coming, said Wilma crossly, marching off. The islanders didn't dare to go with her, but Wilma kept going. I'll take more than a flying fuzzy ear to put me off, she snorted. The sound monster, she shouted. I'd like a word with you. Before Wilma could think what to do next, 2 hairy, eerie wings swept up. Before Wilma could think what to do next, 2 hairy, eerie wings swept down, picked up Floppy and Wilma and flew into the mountain. The eerie wings dropped Wilma and Floppy with a thud. They looked up and saw a strange 2-headed monster, the sound monster. Visitors, what a nice surprise, said one of the heads. I'm Tweeter, and he's my brother Whiffer. Wilma explained to Tweeter the problem with Floppy's bark. Sure, Floppy, she said. Meow, said Floppy. I see, said Tweeter. Well, Whiffer's looking for a special sound for his collection. Whiffer heard his name being mentioned and turned to look at Wilma. Whiffer heard his name being mentioned. Whiffer heard his name being mentioned and turned to look at Wilma and Floppy. He wasn't very happy. I must find the sound, he snapped. Go away! Not until you've given Floppy his bark back, Wilma said. Whiffer was furious. Steam shot out of his ears, and he reached into his pocket, grabbed 2 snapping balls and threw them at Wilma and Floppy. Run! Cried Tweeter. Run! Cried Tweeter. Those sound bites have a nasty nip. Wilma and Floppy ran down a tunnel, closely followed by the sound bites, gnashing their teeth. And the sound monster. Wilma found the door. Floppy, quickly in here, she called. This must be where Whiffer keeps his sound, said Wilma as she looked at all the cassettes and CDs piled up in the middle of the room. Was an enormous book. This shows how the sound monster's machine works, she said, turning to Floppy. Perhaps I can find out how to get your bark back. They ran into the cavern. The sound monster wasn't there. Wilma crept up to the machine. Leave it alone, boomed Whiffer. It was too late. He was back and charging towards them. Stay back, or I'll put the switch, Wilma warned. That closed the machine down completely, said Tweeter. Wilma turned to Whiffer. Have you any idea how many people on this island you've made miserable? She asked. I'll show you. And she got out her pen and started to draw a map of the island. Squeak! At the sound of Wilma's pen, Whiffer's face lit up and he started dancing around. My sound, that's my sound, he cried. Now my collection is complete. Floppy pricked up his ears. Now he could get his bark back. The sound monster made sure that everything on the island had the right noise again. The islanders were very pleased. We'd like you to have this shell to remember us by, they said to Wilma. It makes a lovely sound, she said, holding it to her ear. Then she turned to Floppy. The key's glowing, she said. We're going, Floppy. They were back in the Robinsons' kitchen. Everyone sat at the table, trying to come up with the right sound for their gravel effect, but they just couldn't get it quite right. Crisps, anybody? Said Mrs. Robinson, putting a bowl on the table. The children all tucked in.